Pam. I was wondering if we could have you speak at this point.
Okay, can you hear me?
We can, yeah.
Okay, great. I'm Pam Dempsey-O'Connell. I'm at Mount Wachusett Community College. Our program, our ABE program, has 4 sites, and I'm at the Gardner site. I'm the site manager and the DL coach. So when there's a recruitment, we're option 1. So when there's a recruitment, it oftentimes is coming from the other sites or our classes here at the Gardner campus, where students find that they cannot meet the face-to-face commitment and they feel that DL would be a better option. Or as they're going through the process to go into a face-to-face class, they hear about in an orientation or when they come in to do the placement test that there is a DL option, a distance learning option. They choose to get started. So I really adhere to the screening process, the emailing back and forth, and I see this whole process as a funnel. We've got a lot of people doing the emailing, the screening with me, with the online form that they've got to fill out, and sometimes I don't meet these people until they come to take the MAPT, the placement test. And so Horty was talking about that very strong connection with the student. That's when I try to make that connection with the adult learner, is when they're here mapping. I try to use our intake form to probe, ask questions, that sort of thing, to find out if this is a good fit. And once again, sometimes in the emailing, people fall off, and so it narrows down to somebody who's really interested will make their way here to Gardner. They do the MAPT, and then again we look at that score. Sometimes that weeds folks out because I heard you, Eunice, ask Horty about adhering to what MAPT reading level. We use the 500 as the guide on. There has been a couple of folks, Wendy is our online instructor, who has agreed to take some folks who are closing in on the 400 because they showed evidence in their mapping score while they were at one of the other sites. Does it always work? No. But sometimes it does, and they work in bringing their English reading or their level up. The other thing that I really adhere to is once they make it through that point is it's about 6 hours. I do 3 hours because I heard you ask, Horty, how long is your orientation? I tell them they've signed up for 3 hours. They're coming here for part 1 for 3 hours, and then a week later part 2. And I follow the agenda that they shared with us at the beginning of the school year, but I've added some things to it. I do the pre-homework for the true-false. I send it out as an email and attachment 1 week before the class and ask them to bring it in, but I always have copies for them. And then prior to seeing that, or working with the true-false, I have added a short video so that I can talk about online learning, the digital world, being a digital citizen, being a digital student. This little video clip has all of that. So I use it as a springboard into the true-false. And so I'm hoping all along they're learning that, you know, it may be harder than they think, because a lot of folks think this will be, I'm sure you guys all hear it, easier for them to just do it online. The other thing that I've added in part 2, so they leave with the Khan Academy homework of 5 hours. When they come back, I also, in part 2, I've included a short video. A few years ago, we were working with the grit scale, Angela Duckworth's research on grit. There's a short What is Grit video by Angela Duckworth, and I show that, and it talks about persisting and, you know, being gritty and being resilient. If something happens, don't fall off, get back on. So that I allow them to see that, because oftentimes they come back and say, gee, it was harder than I thought to find 5 hours. You know, don't give up. We try to, you know, really encourage them. Something I do for a check-in is once a quarter I send a newsletter out, just updates, encouraging quotes. Wendy does it once a week, but I try to send out an email once a quarter, every other month, with some inspirational quote. And I also invite all the DL students to come in if we have speakers for college and career readiness. That's something else. Some have come in because they want to hear about the transitions program that we have. And then I'm trying to think of anything that I do differently. Because that was one thing you were saying, something a little different that I do. Oh, when do I intervene? I'm going to say Wendy and the attendance that Kathy sends is my heads up. I get the Dropbox information, I find out who's doing what, and then I call it stalking, but I really shouldn't, but I start calling or emailing and trying to find students. Sometimes I find them. Sometimes what I find out about students explains why they're not in class. I make sure to share that with Wendy and Kathy because we're option 1. We do have 2 dual enrolled students, and our 2 dual enrolled students are in with an instructor here at this site, and she does sometimes independent study time, so those 2 students utilize that time because that particular instructor likes what she sees in KET, and she encourages them to use their independent study time in class to work on whatever tests they're about to take in KET in class. So even though we're not in option 2, I have one instructor who's trying to support those 2 dual enrolled students.
Okay, I'm looking at the chat and I got interrupted here, so I'm catching up. I believe Kathy is asking you if you would share what you talked about, Pam, with the group.
What I talked about with what, Kathy?
I think it was the grit video.
Oh,
and
the grit.
And maybe a newsletter.
I think that would be great, Pam. And also, I was chatting also, and I was listening too, because Noreen and Kelly from Brockton also said that they had visual instructions that they sent to people as an extra to the orientation. And if that's something that's working, if they feel like it's working, I think it would be terrific to share it with all of us. I'm always anxious to see what's working well, so we can share it with everybody. So yeah.
So share you want, Kathy, the grit video and the digital literacy video?
I would love that. I think that would be terrific. And Noreen and Kelly, if you can hear me, I would love to see whatever instructions you're sending people extra as well.